Hello to everybody joining us today for our apprentices show and tell on their interaction design placement. We just let you know that we are going to be recording the session today, so just to bear in mind, if you want, welcome to have your camera on, but if you don't want to appear on the recording, please make sure it's turned off. And yeah, we're going to get started in a couple of minutes. We're just going to give everyone a chance to join. I think we're slowing down with people joining in the lobby, so we'll get started. Just to note to anyone else that has come in since I last said, we're recording the session today, so if you don't want to appear on the recording, please make sure your camera is off. And I will pass over to Alex now to introduce the show and tell. Welcome, Bow, and here you go, Alex.
Thank you. Hello all and welcome to our third Apprentice show and tell. So firstly, if you are interested in seeing our past two show and tells, these can be found on our CDPS's YouTube channel. But today, Ruth, Sarah and I will be talking you through our recent 3-month placement in interaction design, which we completed in July. Our mentor for this placement was resident interaction designer Liam Collins, who enthusiastically taught us, supported us in our projects, and gave us numerous shadowing opportunities throughout our time with him. This presentation should last about 30 minutes and we'll be taking questions at the end. So at the start of our interaction design placement, we apprentices met with Liam in person for 2 introductory days where Liam delivered some lectures and we completed some interaction design exercises. So I will just talk you through some of what we covered. So to start, we spoke about how to define the difference between user-centered design jobs, such as user experience design, often known as UX design, service design, and interaction design. We then discussed some real-world case studies of good interaction design and some examples where good interaction design could have prevented disaster or could transform a digital product or service. So then Liam talked us through the double dip diamond diagram, which is a commonly used tool in the user-centered design community, and it illustrates best practice design processes. This diagram and the approach that it represents has been helpful in planning our work and further adopting an agile working mindset, as well as helping us understand how design teams work. After an insightful introduction, Liam set us a couple of interaction design exercises, which were a lot of fun and helped us get into the headspace of an interaction designer. So the first was an exercise in creative thinking called 101 uses, where you have to name as many uses for like an everyday object as you can think of. And we also did things like brainstormed hypothetical business ideas and some imagined future uses for AI. One of our final tasks involved a bit of prep. So we all brought with us a bullet point critique of a digital application that we liked and one that we didn't like. And we discussed our examples as a group with an interaction design focus. We talked about what we thought the applications did well and what we thought could be better from the point of view of the user. We also covered some important skills such as interpreting and expanding on design briefs. We looked at some examples of the work Liam has completed at the CDPS. We discussed the various phases of prototyping and the sort of work that you could expect to do at the CDPS as an interaction designer. Over to Sarah.
Thanks. So at the start of our placement, Liam created a roadmap for us. This was a visual guide, which was really beneficial. It helped us to plan our shadowing opportunities. It linked our college learning outcomes to the activities we were involved in and had a swim lane for our own mini projects. The roadmap helped to keep us on track and it made it easy to see our progress. So one of the first tasks we observed was the creation of a sitemap for the service manual structure. Liam walked us through the entire process, starting with a simple Word document and transforming it into a detailed sitemap in Figma. This was our first introduction to a sitemap and how it fits into the broader design process. We also observed Liam reviewing user feedback from usability testing sessions during the alpha phase of the service manual. He carefully analysed the feedback, highlighting recurring themes and identifying points that might require changes to the prototype. He then categorised the feedback, which gave us an insight into how feedback is processed and prioritised. After reviewing the feedback, we shadowed Liam as he created a spreadsheet to track possible design iterations based on the insights from user research. This spreadsheet was coded to identify whether the changes were related to content, interaction design, or needed a team decision, and it also prioritised these changes. We later used a similar approach in our own mini projects. Liam also gave us lessons in Figma, focusing on creating interactions. We started with the basics and then gradually upskilled as we encountered challenges, such as aligning content on a page. He also introduced us to grid systems in Figma, which greatly helped us achieve our goals in our mini projects. One of the final activities we shadowed was an accessibility audit of a website, which tied directly into our college criteria for the placement. Liam guided us through completing a basic accessibility audit and a usability audit, which we then applied to a website as the final part of our interaction design unit. Shadowing Liam across these activities not only enhanced our understanding, but also prepared us to apply what we'd learned to our own projects. So myself and Ruth collaborated again for our interaction project. Our mini project came out of the design ops work. The design team are designing individually and starting from scratch on work. So design work needed to be saved in a centralised location as templates and resources for people to use. There are also examples of work that needed to be saved. So we needed to build the house that would store this content. The first task that we tackled was writing a design brief. This helped us clearly understand the project's background, objectives and deliverables. The brief helped us know exactly what we needed to achieve. We then conducted desk research on existing types of resource libraries, looking at their layouts, content, and how resource libraries are set up in Notion. This research provided us with a starting point and gave us some ideas on how to structure our own library. Next, we scheduled a meeting with some of the designers who acted as our subject matter experts. We asked them about their needs from a resource library, what they would expect to see in one, and what features would make it a useful and usable resource. Their insights were invaluable in shaping our approach to the project.
So after carrying out this initial research, we had a relatively good understanding of how the resource library should be structured, as well as what key information and resources it should contain. Sarah and I started to create a sitemap of our own with the learning we gained from shadowing Liam. The sitemap helped us to understand and visualise how the different pages would be organised and connected. This provided us with a clear overview of the entire system. Initially, we found it a bit tricky to create the sitemap and connecting all the arrows to show the navigation from one page to another, but the more we practiced, the easier it became. And then following this, we also made a user flow to give us a visual representation of the potential paths a user might take to accomplish a specific task or goal within the product. We tried to make sure that it outlined a few steps that a user might go through from the starting point to the final outcome. We also individually created user personas of designers who varied in levels of experience and job titles and captured their potential individual needs. And by creating these user personas, we were able to gain a deeper understanding of their needs, pain points and behaviours.
So Ruth and I each worked separately on our wireframe ideas and prototypes with the goal of combining the best elements from both into a final product in Notion. So initially I found it quite challenging to visualise the layout of the resource library, and to overcome this, I sketched some ideas. These sketches served as a foundation for creating a wireframe in Figma, which gave me a clearer idea of the pages and the layout for the resource library. We then shared our wireframes with each other and with Liam for initial feedback. From there, I began developing a low-fidelity prototype to demonstrate the layout of the resource library. This was when we realised we needed to upskill in Figma to achieve what we needed to. So Liam guided us through the process of finding and adding icons, positioning content with grid systems, and creating basic interactions. I really enjoyed this part of the project and could have easily spent more time refining the prototype. However, due to our timeline and the need for initial feedback to make further improvements, we kept it simple. Once I was reasonably satisfied with the prototype, we planned a user testing session. We tested our prototypes with each other and then with some of the designers we'd spoken to during our initial research. It was both exciting and nerve-wracking to see my prototype in action. It was rewarding to watch people navigate it and see the interactions work, but I also knew that constructive criticism would be essential for making necessary design iterations and improvements. One key takeaway for me was the importance of being clear about what aspects of the prototype the users were testing, whether it was the layout and navigation or the appearance and content.
So I also went off and started mapping hand-drawn wireframes before transitioning to digital, which made the process more manageable as it allowed me to focus on the creative aspects of the design without getting bogged down by the technical details like alignment and coordination. This approach helped me quickly explore ideas and concepts which I could then refine and perfect in the digital version later on. So when I transitioned my designs over into Figma, I had to continue to consider how users would interact with each element on the page, whilst ensuring that the design was intuitive, user-friendly, and of course functional. Figma's collaborative features were particularly helpful as I could easily share my work with my fellow apprentices and Liam to receive feedback and make iterative improvements as I went along. So after the wireframe was fleshed out, I started to create a prototype. So prior to this, Liam demonstrated to us, Liam demonstrated to us how to go from a basic prototype to a more interactive one by showing us how to make boxes look like buttons and how to create links within them, making the buttons clickable. One of the key benefits of creating this prototype was that it gave me the ability to simulate a real user experience, which helped me visualize how users might interact with the design. One of the challenges I faced was the learning curve associated with mastering Figma's more advanced features. While the basics were straightforward, creating a fully interactive prototype required a deeper understanding of the tool, which took some time for me to develop. But with the support and help from Liam, I feel I was able to luckily pull something out of the bag that was presentable in the time that we had. And then testing our prototypes with each other and internal designers proved to be really helpful. And having an interactive prototype to test made it easier to gather meaningful feedback. It was important to ensure that our users understood this was a basic prototype, so we encouraged them to focus on the overall feel of the content, layout and navigation rather than the specific design details. We also encouraged them to bear in mind that the prototype was created within a week, while we were also learning how to use Figma at the same time. But having fresh eyes on the design, especially from the people who would go on to eventually use the end product, really helped me to see things from their perspective and to catch any unconscious bias in my design decisions that I might have missed. It was also just exciting to see my prototype being used and come to life, and it felt rewarding to hear positive feedback about the design as well as constructive.
So after the user testing, Ruth and I documented all the feedback in a spreadsheet, identifying which improvements could be made. This collaborative process ensured that we could refine our designs based on real user input and work towards creating a resource library that met the needs of its users. After documenting the feedback from our users, Ruth and I prioritised the most frequently recurring and higher importance changes. These were key to incorporate in the final design. The next challenge was learning how to build the library in Notion. So Ruth and I both experimented with the platform independently and then regrouped to share our findings and teach each other what we'd learned. What we found was that we were confined to the limitations of the product, so we had to adapt our design to fit within Notion's design patterns and components. After making the necessary adjustments, we conducted a final round of user feedback and shared the library with Liam. The product was then ready to house the CTPS designers' templates and resources.
So I did a separate mini project from Ruth and Sarah, but it shared a lot of similarities. I was fortunately able to carry the project I was working on during my user research placement over to interaction design. So I was working on building a library which houses information on training completed by staff members at the CDPS, so that other members of staff can get inspiration and see reviews and recommendations directly from colleagues. I rushed through the design in my user research placement so that I could focus my time on the research aspect. So I did take the opportunity in interaction design to revisit that design and create new prototypes which were more detailed and fit for purpose, and base these on my user research findings. So earlier in this interaction placement, I completed tasks which are like commonplace in the interaction design process, and that included writing up user personas. I mapped the expected user journeys and also created a sitemap for my library. I also drew up some wireframe prototypes, starting with a really basic wireframe, which you can see in the first screenshot here, a more detailed wireframe second, and then went on to producing a medium fidelity prototype with working buttons shown in the final screenshot there. These designs were based on and iterated using feedback from Liam and some user testing I carried out with colleagues as well. It's not been possible in practice to translate these designs into a working interface due to resource limitations. To do so would require help from a developer, but I intentionally designed freely during this stage and unobstructed by what might be achievable in the programs I could personally use to build them. But I decided to go this direction because I wanted to get a feel of what it would be like to design as a professional interaction designer, where you would have the developer at the end. And this turned out to be a really excellent exercise in learning. I really enjoyed the process from start to finish. I do hope at some point to be able to take this design forward into something usable by the CDPS and my colleagues, and perhaps by modifying the design to work on a web application like SharePoint or Notion, something that I could personally make it on, and based on whether my colleagues think this is something that would be useful, feasible, and maintained longer term.
So during our 3-month interaction design placement, we recognised the importance of mastering Figma. So we requested some extra support in this area. Our college tutor provided us with an introduction to Figma covering the essentials. We learned about the different tools available, practiced creating shapes, experimented with various frames, and explored plugins like Iconify. This foundation was crucial for building our confidence in using Figma. We also had another lesson focused on wireframing in Figma, and this session introduced us to some ready-made components, and we learned about how to create key elements like hero banners, footers, and call to action buttons. So the primary focus of our college coursework was completing our interaction design unit. This required us to thoroughly understand and explain the design process, then apply that knowledge to create interactions that could be tested, iterated upon, and eventually deployed. Working through this process was a hands-on experience that solidified our learning. In addition to our design work, we also completed Prentisiaid, a Welsh language course aimed at developing our Welsh language speaking and comprehension skills. This course is a part of the apprenticeship and supported our personal development.
So alongside doing college work and shadowing on the placement, we also attended a few in-person days at our Spark office in Cardiff. We were invited to a design ops day and spent the day with other designers who work at CDPS. This was just an interesting day as it provided us with a clear reminder of the design vision for Wales and offered us insights into the various tasks that designers undertake in the organisation. And it also highlighted how they collaborate and work as a team with other roles. Shortly after this, we also attended another in-person day at Spark called a hackathon, which involved the organisation's communities of practice coming together for the first time, I believe. The day involved addressing some rather complex challenges faced by Wales. These challenges were set by the Welsh Language Commissioner, the Older People's Commissioner, and the Future Generations Commissioner. There were roughly 60 people at the event who were divided into 9 different groups with about 6 or 7 members in each. Each group was assigned a specific challenge where we were then guided through a series of workshops where we had to work together as a team to try and develop solutions to the problem at hand. We later went on to present back our ideas to a panel of representatives. The day was highly valuable, providing us with the opportunity to hone our skills in creative thinking, brainstorming and teamwork. It also offered us insight into some of the significant challenges facing Wales, whilst giving us the chance to meet new people and expand our professional network. So we will now take some time to individually reflect on the past 3 months and share our personal thoughts and opinions. So personally, I've thoroughly enjoyed this placement. Working on internal projects has been particularly rewarding, as they've not only been low risk and ideal for learning, but also offered a sense of accomplishment in knowing we contributed in benefiting the organisation in some small way. The in-person sessions at Spark were especially beneficial as they enhanced our understanding of interaction design and the role itself. I appreciated how the sessions were divided, with the first one being an introduction and the second one allowing us to practice our creativity. Initially, I was a bit apprehensive, thinking the placement would be highly technical, and I was concerned about eventually working independently in Figma and contributing to building the final product on Notion. However, when we tested our prototypes with internal members of staff, I was genuinely thrilled to see them navigating my design. And being able to witness that the prototype looked real and could function properly was incredibly satisfying and gave me hope in my technical abilities. I think our placement mentor, Liam, did an outstanding job in dedicating his time to help us. He was always available to answer our questions and kindly shared a lot of his knowledge, which I think greatly contributed to our learning experience. I also feel that the interaction design role has highly sparked my interest and is an area I wouldn't mind revisiting.
I thought it was great to go from the user research placement straight into interaction design, as I found the two disciplines went really well, went hand in hand with each other. On starting the placement, I quickly developed a better understanding of the importance of activities such as writing up user personas, user journey mapping and iterative prototyping. And I could really see in practice how they enabled good digital design. I also really appreciated the opportunity to continue with my own project because I could use my previous findings to inform my ongoing work. I took a real liking to interaction design from the start, but particularly enjoyed prototyping as I had the space to get creative there. And finally, I found it really beneficial to see Liam in situ to get a clearer idea of what the day in the life of an interaction designer might look like. And this will hopefully help me make an informed decision when I go on to choose the area of user-centered design that I'd like to go into.
So when I started this placement, I was worried that it would be the most challenging due to my lack of creativity and artistic skills, but thankfully Liam eased my concerns during our in-person days. The first day gave us a solid overview of interaction design, while the second focused on creative thinking techniques. And although I felt more positive, I was still unsure of my abilities. Early on, we started our mini projects with Liam offering clear guidance and resources. During the hackathon, I had a breakthrough in creative thinking while working with others on the issue of childhood obesity, which boosted my confidence. Though Figma seemed daunting at first, support from Liam and college helped me create a simple, clickable prototype. Feedback from colleagues improved my understanding, and it was reassuring that Ruth and I had similar prototypes, showing that we'd both grasped the brief. Collaborating with Ruth on the final Design Ops library was another highlight. Despite limited experience with Notion, we problem solved, used feedback and created something we're proud of for CTPS designers. What I thought would be the toughest placement turned out to be the most rewarding. Thanks to Liam's guidance, I gained confidence in my creative abilities.
So what's coming up next? We're currently a few weeks into our final placement, which is service design, and have been to a few shadowing opportunities that have been really beneficial for our learning. We have been learning that shadowing provides first-hand insight into day-to-day responsibilities and workflows of team members, and it also just helps us to build relationships with colleagues and ask questions in real time to gain a deeper understanding of each role. We will continue with the same approach as our previous placements, where we will be assigned a small internal project that involves both collaborative teamwork and independent work. And in addition to this, we have already started on the relevant college units that align with this placement. After the final placement is over, we will have a remaining 6 months left of the apprenticeship and be in a position where we need to start thinking about which area we want to specialise in and choose a desired career path. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much, and diolch for listening. If anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, please feel free to come forward and we will do our best to answer them. Or if you prefer to write a question in the chat, that's also completely fine as well. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask? Just check in the chat as well. Very quiet. Oh, Pete, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I've got a cheeky question for you. So that was fantastic. Well done. Brilliant to hear. I'm not sure who's on the call altogether. There may be some external people here, people new to the whole idea, but it's just about the prototypes. And you've spent some time there, all of you, talking about the building, the prototypes, and so on. I'm just wondering if you could sort of frame what the purpose of it is. What's the benefit? Why bother doing that instead of going straight to something live?
I think prototyping, starting from a really basic wireframe and iterating into more complex, higher fidelity prototypes, I think it just enables you to find the pitfalls and perhaps the mistakes or pain points really early on, so you're not running with a design that you don't know for a fact works well. Oh, Sarah, you're on mute. Is it? Oh, your mic's stuck.
No good. No good. Okay, thanks, Alex. Much appreciated. So in terms of, I fully follow you on that. I think you're exactly right. So I'm taking, you've explained a bit about this, but you learned a lot from testing those prototypes. And I know Ruth in particular, you said it was brilliant to watch people interacting with them. Anything else you'd like to say on that? Any of the sort of, I know you said you really enjoyed watching it, but did it make any major changes in your mindset to it, or did people point things out that you hadn't thought of?
I think it was. I think the feedback that we got was mostly what I was expecting. I think everyone, obviously, as we're apprentices, were very kind when giving us feedback, which is good. But then the constructive feedback was really beneficial because obviously you're creating something based on your assumptions, and when you're creating it, you're kind of still outside of it. So it's just interesting that until you test it with the users who are eventually going to be using it, you just completely see things from your point of view. So I personally noticed that a lot of the wording on certain titles or certain folders on my prototype weren't obvious to the designers of what they were, whereas I thought it was like clear as day. So I just think it's quite interesting until you test it with the users who are the main focus group. You get really valuable information. And as Alex said earlier, that's kind of the point with fleshing out a wireframe and prototypes. It's to get all those kind of identified points and pain points in early on before creating the main thing. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, lovely. Thank you. It's all about that. Those user voices, isn't it? And taking their perspective. Fantastic. I'll be quiet. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I think Oshan's got his hand up.
Hello, diolch yn fawr. That was really good to see how you've got on in the last few months. My question is similar to what I think Joe is asking in the chat as well, around now that you're on your kind of fourth placement of the year, kind of how are you seeing like how all those kind of come together? Because you're obviously focusing on like a discipline at a time. But are you seeing the value of all those disciplines working together and being able to be a multidisciplinary team in order to design things that are user-centered? Is that kind of coming out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think user-centered design teams can be quite complex because there's so much that goes into it. There's so much that you can think about when designing in a user-centered way, and getting the benefit of getting a deeper insight into all of those different disciplines has been like so useful to see how it all comes together and how everyone has these different specialities and does their particular role really, really well. Yeah, I think it's just been so valuable, and I think we've had that benefit that not everyone gets from doing this apprenticeship. So we're really grateful for that, and I think that in going into our chosen career path, that's also going to be really helpful because it'll enable us to sort of take on the jobs that we know that we're responsible for because we've seen it, and be able to delegate work as well to the correct people so that we're not trying to sort of take too much on or do something that's not within our remit. So yeah, I think it's going to be really helpful going forward as well.
I think that also being able to go into all the different UCD roles, I feel we've kind of just picked up so many different skills as well as kind of seeing how everything comes together. So like, for example, we've not only learned kind of technical skills during the apprenticeship on various platforms that CDPS uses like Miro and Figma and Zoom, but also like skills in creativity, teamwork, and as Alex said, most importantly, just having a complete shift in perspective in terms of UCD. I think we were joking recently that we can't see life or any digital product now in the same way without seeing opportunities for user-centered design, even when we're outside of work. So I think that's the biggest thing we've learned in this, is just having that new mindset and core understanding of what we're trying to achieve in our organisation, basically.
Diolch yn fawr. Yeah. I'm worried for you now. You've got the UCD disease. You can never get rid of it. Diolch.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Any questions in the chat? I haven't really been following. Oh, Joe, you would ask, specialise in how are your experience across discipline shape? How you work in a multidisciplinary team? Okay, so that aligned with Arshad's question. Okay, I don't think I see any more questions now, unless anyone wants to come forward and raise their hand. If not, I think we're happy to end it there if everyone else is. Amazing. Well, thank you, everyone. Diolch. As Alex said, we've got past show and tells on the CDPS YouTube channel, if anyone wants to go and look at those. And this recording will be put onto YouTube at a later date as well for anyone who's missed it. And thank you, everyone, for your kind comments in the chat as well. And thank you for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Diolch, everyone. Thank you.